Perfect. So if we could start off with your name and where you're from.
Yeah, my name's Jimmy McCaffrey, and I'm currently in Hamden, Connecticut, which
Awesome.
is a suburb of New Haven. Yeah.
Okay. And before we get into the big news, I want to hear more about your background. So what's your athletic background?
That's a great question, man. I mean, I grew up I grew up like a skateboard BMX kid, man. Like I had, I mean, I played baseball, but like I wasn't really into any of that stuff. And I actually got pretty out of shape, as I got in my 20s and everything. And so I'm not like a natural athlete. And I moved to California in 2006 for a job, and it's a 340 days a year of perfect weather. I was in Berkeley and Oakland, and and you could just go hiking up in the hills, and you could do whatever. I got into cycling because I had a lot of friends who were into that, and lost weight and quit smoking and got healthy, and did an alley cat race, which is like basically a scavenger hunt on bikes. And
Oh,
I just remember the first time, like, man, I guess my legs were just full of lactic crud, and I just like my legs like locked up. And I remember like I was like, this is so cool. Like I couldn't move my legs; they just were these bricks. And that was the thing that got me. I've been riding for 4 hours that day, and just was like hooked. And then went to a Sports Authority, bought a pair of sneakers, running shoes, and shorts, and still running in a cotton shirt. And I just was like, hey, I'm going to be a runner. And did the whole run a block, walk a block thing. It was probably a couple weeks before I could string a mile together. And then just was able to put a couple miles together. And then a buddy said, sign up, do a half marathon. I was like, yeah, not a bad idea. Did a couple of those, and then uh, did my first trail race, my third half marathon, and discovered ultra marathons. I heard a guy was they had these signs up saying ultra marathon Saturday, and I'm like, what's an ultra marathon? The guy's like, talking to this guy, he's like 50K. I'm like 50K, if he's like 50 kilometers. I'm like, and I couldn't convert
no.
kilometers and to miles. I had no clue. And I'm like, whoa, how far is that? He's like, it's like 31.1. And I'm like, oh, cool. And he's like, yeah, so he did the half marathon, and I was trying to chase this dude down for like the last 3-4 miles. Could never catch him, but he pulled me along to a faster time, and I was talking to him and saying thanks and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I'm gonna go out and do another loop because I'm training for this North Face 50 miler coming up in San Francisco in December. And I'm hopefully I can get into Western States. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, oh, it's this
Yeah.
100 miler in starts at Squaw Valley, goes up over the mountains, and then goes all the way down to Auburn. And something in my brain, first time I've ever heard of an ultra marathon, something in my brain's like, you're going to do that one day. And then, yeah, here we are. I've just got into that. I did. I tell people it's funny. I did a 100 miler before I ever did a road marathon or a 5K or any road race. I just got right into trail running, and just got right into within you know 7 months later, I think I was doing my first ultra. 3 months after that, I think I did my first 50 miler, and and then it was on. Yeah, and then I just this tribe of nuts just accepted me fully, and I remember, it was just it was the coolest experience. People were talking to each other and were friendly, and not to say, I think road racers are cool, and I love. I mean, I've run Boston twice. I love racing and running
Yeah.
hard, but it's a different tribe. And man, it's just all of our warts and all were just accepted, and like, yeah, just we're just another idiot running around in short shorts, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty rad.
I first got into kind of ultra marathon stuff. Actually, I the map of the first trail marathon I ever did. It's Infinitus up in Vermont, and
Oh
I don't know
yeah,
if you
yeah,
know much about that event, but they have 100 mile, an 88K, an 888K. I was doing the kids
yeah.
race, the marathon, and just being surrounded by amazing people, super humble, and just everyone sharing drink. I mean, you can't do it now because of COVID, but everyone like sharing drinks, and like, you need some nutrition, you need this, and everyone's helping each other, and it's just the trail, the running community is excellent. The trail running community, I like even better, and then the ultra trail, like the best. So
Yeah,
it's easy to get caught up in how awesome
yeah.
the people are there, right?
Yeah, I think there's something about it's that shared
Suffering.
that shared suffering. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
where we know, like, and all that veneer, all that vulnerability is out in the open, and all that, I hate to use the analogy, but the masks we wear to go through life every day, like
Yeah.
here's me as a dad, here's me as a husband, here's me as a employee, here's me, getting mad in my car. But then you're at mile, 42 of a 50 miler. And it's like, none of that stuff matters. And it's just like,
Nope.
hey, dude, I'm hurting. I'm broken right now. Like, let me glom on to you, and let's get 8 miles in together, kind of thing. And you start telling each other your life stories and stuff, people, who don't run ultras, friends of mine that it takes them years to learn this stuff about me. And here's this total stranger, I just met, and I'm like, oh, that guy Tom's the best dude ever,
Yeah.
like, and yeah, and then and then it's like, and then I see him again, a couple months later at a race, and it's like we're best buds, and yeah, this community is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. You get to, I know a lot of listeners here are familiar with World's Toughest Mudder, and it's a 24-hour event, and you just go through hell.
Yeah,
And the friends that you see there, you have a bond with them that you obviously you love your best friends, but it's a different kind of bond. They know you. They've seen you
yeah,
at your worst, they've helped you through it, and it's the best.
yeah.
And again, congratulations for getting into Western States. I did see that in the
Yeah,
Facebook page. That's exciting.
that's been an almost decade process, man. It was 7 years in the lottery, and I took a 1 year buy. So it was, I guess, 8 years, and then having it postponed last year. So it's been 9 years in the making. This thing is finally gonna happen for me this year. So yeah, thanks, man. That's
That's kept pushing
and
for
that
it
was
though.
like,
That's awesome.
yeah, that was the first ultra I heard about. So I was like, well, of course I got to do it, And then the next ultra I heard about was JFK 50, which I did a couple years ago, and that's
Nice.
rad too. That's an awesome race, iconic, classic East Coast, like 13 miles on the AT or whatever, 13 miles on the AT, and then the C&O towpath, and another awesome race with great support, and just an awesome tribe of folks. Yeah.
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 And something else I saw about your background, and I am a behavioral therapist. My girlfriend's a special ed teacher. Do you have a background in special education?
Yeah, yeah. I taught special ed for man. I taught high school for a couple years.
Oh wow.
2004, 2005, 2006. Then I got involved with the Best Buddies program
Oh cool.
at the
Yeah.
high school I was at. So that one of my kids went off to UC Berkeley, and that's what got me out there, because he's like, hey, they have a disabled students residence program out here. Come check it out. And I went out, and I interviewed, and I got hired, and that's what got me out to California. And and that was a great job, and that was awesome. And I got burned out really quick though, because I worked a lot of overnights. It's a lot of physical care of
Yeah.
disabled young men living in the dorms, trying to have we try to give them the most normal college experience possible. And I got that was an awesome job, and awesome people in that program, and the kids were amazing. And yeah, and then I went back, and I taught preschool for 8 years. So I
Oh
was
wow.
the preschool ultra runner guy. Yeah. And
That's a
then
cool
yeah,
combo.
and that's funny. My wife's a therapist. My wife and she works in schools as a child therapist. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. So
Yeah.
what brought you back to the East Coast after living in paradise on the West Coast? California,
Yeah.
excellent weather, great hiking.
Right. I mean, we had a kid, and suddenly, California's expensive as it is, and it just got even that much more expensive. And my wife grew up in Greenfield, Mass, and I grew up down in Philly. So we wanted to end up in Philly just because my wife, has worked in nonprofits, and that's like the nonprofit capital of Earth, I think. And it didn't quite work out. And so she got a job offer in New Haven, and the agreement was that I was going to be a stay-at-home dad for a couple of years, because she's like, you've got the education background, you're awesome with kids, like you have no problem letting 3 and 4 year olds climb all over you, you know. I know how many times I've had to like shave my beard because I got gum in it, and it wasn't even my gum, like stuff like that.
That stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's why ultras are great, because it's like I don't know how many times I've fixed people's feet, or like it's like, yeah, I've done this for kids, like it's like helping a kid tie his shoes. But yeah, she got a job offer in New Haven, and I remember she was like, yeah, New Haven. And I was like, what do you know about it? I was like, "Ugh, good pizza in Yale. I was like, I don't know anything. And I was like, Connecticut's a drive-through state, like
Yeah.
which I was, once I got here and we started exploring, I was like, well, Connecticut's rad. But yeah, and that's how we ended up here.
funny that you called it the drive-through state. We call it like the traffic state. My girlfriend, her family's from New Jersey, and so we go to visit, and we always hit traffic there. And it's like the first like two rest stops are closed, and it's like, all right, time to make
Right.
this drive. And the traffic's
Yeah.
always in Connecticut. Doesn't matter when.
Yeah, no,
Some
no, that's like, yeah, we'd always just use it as a drive-through state to get up to, Boston or Maine or, Cape Cod or wherever, my family was going. And then, yeah, I think I've only, gotten out and walked around like twice my whole life in Connecticut. And yeah, now we live here and we're putting roots down here, and it's rad. I think it's an underrated state for outdoor activities.
yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah. And speaking of those outdoor activities, so I saw that you're a race director for some pretty unique events in Southern New England. Tell us a little bit about Live Loud Running.
Live Loud Running, man. That's it's funny. The name, a buddy of mine, when I was like, so I was trying to figure out like, how do I, he's like, the brand has to be you. And he's like, think of, what you are. So I remember me and my wife were talking one night, and I was like, what would I name the company, like, to make it, about me, whatever. And she's like, oh dude, you're so full of life and you're so loud. Like, and I'm like, life, loud, living large, live loud. There we go. Boom. And I think it's also like kind of like it's also like a decoration. Like, yeah, dude, like live loud, like live out loud, So yeah, that was something that I had wanted to do, living in the Bay Area. But the Bay Area has so many well-established race directors, race companies, that it was kind of like oversaturated. So it's probably never going to happen there. And I remember, every time I'd go out for a run, I'd be like, man, this would be a cool race. This would be cool. And so when I came here, I ended up hooking up with this guy. I've been living here probably six months or so. And I ran into this guy, Neil. And we started, bouncing ideas off of each other. He's like, there's some really cool trail networks, and we have this Blue Blaze trail system here. It's like 825 miles of volunteer maintained trails that all blue blazed. And yeah, and it's a lot of them are connected. So you can actually go from the Massachusetts border and go all the way to Long Island Sound on trail. I mean, you cross a ton of roads, and the joke about Connecticut, where we'll see people posting on Facebook like, oh, I was up, I got lost in bubble. I'm like, you're never more than like 2 miles from a house or a road. Like, you could be on, even on the Appalachian Trail, that corner up there, like, and you're still like not that remote. So yeah, I saw that there was a few trail races, back in 2017 and 18, when I'd kind of been researching this, and I guess doing some what would I call it? Now I know it's testing the market. Yeah, kind of like like kind of like what, what's the vibe, what's going on here. And I'd done a couple local races, and basically we had no trail 50 miler in this state. We have a 50 miler at Lake Warramug, the Jack Bristol Lake Warramug races. It's a road race. So it's a 50K, 50 miler, 100K. And it's known as, it's a fast road, loop, 7-mile loop around the lake. But we had no trail 50 miler, and 50 miles is my favorite distance. And I just think, you're going to be out there, if you're a fast guy, 6 hours, if you're someone like me, more like 9 hours, and then, the back of the pack folks, 13, 14 hours. So to me, that's like the perfect distance. It's like half a day, you're going to crack yourself open. You're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to have, you're going to have a great time, and you're going to cover 50 miles. So I've been, kind of checking around big green spots on the map around the state, like where can a 50 miler happen? And that's kind of how like Live Loud was sort of born, was that I wanted to put on a 50, I wanted to give this state a 50 miler because there was a void. And we have like a 10, a looped race that's 10 hours that you can, maybe the top 2 or 3 people might get 50 miles in, but like I wanted everyone to be able to do a 50 miler and have somewhat of a generous cutoff. And so my first baby was the Patchogue Trail runs in 2019, and I put on a few in 2000, the end of 18 and into 19. I'd put on a bunch of what I would call test pilots, essentially, fat asses that I would essentially just crew everyone and be like, hey, come, get 20, 25 runners to come out and let me see if this is going to work. And that's how 6 hours at the reservoir became an official race. And the Blue to Blue Challenge, which is which is my favorite race to put on and my favorite race to, it's just, it's some of the gnarliest, most technical trails in the state. Only crosses 3 roads, 16 and a half miles out, 16 and a half back. And that's the big joke in Connecticut, is none of the 50Ks in this state are actually 50K. They're all long. They're all like 32, 33 miles. Like,
Yeah.
So yeah, and so then those kind of came into the repertoire. And then the first thing that I had put on was the West Rock Winter Fat Ass in December of 18. And that's when, kind of was like, hey, this can be a reality, because I think we had 29 people come out.
Nice.
And, we were out, some of us were out running until it got dark. I mean, we were out running 8 hours. Some guys missed turns and they ended up doing like 39 miles. And, and they were like, what happened? I'm like, yeah, you know what, whatever. And I think I ended up having so much fun that I did extra miles with some kids, and it was just great. It was, this thing, I thought this could be a reality. This could be a thing. And then, putting on a few virtual races here and there. And we put on a weird little relay race last year called Escape from Castle Craig.
Yeah, I saw that. That was cool.
That was, and I think I only got like 14 people to sign up for that, but we did have two teams of 4 to do a relay, see who could get the furthest away from Castle Craig in Meriden. It's this little castle up on West Peak there at Hubbard Park. And basically start start touching the Iron Gate, and then boom, your time starts. You got 24 hours. Each rudder has 6 hours to do a leg. And, and we made it all the way to almost to Windsor, Vermont. And I got the overnight leg. So I ran from, I think we started like 7:30 at night, and I think I took over I ran 1:30 to 7:30 a.m. and running through those towns in southern Massachusetts there. It was awesome. And then my guys are meeting me every 6 miles, and it was so much fun. So this year I'm changing the format up a little bit, and I think we're going to do like a 5-person relay, and still trying to work out some of the details with that. But yeah, just trying. I'm the type of person who just says, let's try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll figure out something new, or it won't come back, or and that's kind of how, that's kind of the ultra runner I am too, where it's like, people always say, don't try new stuff on race day. And it's like, I don't know how many times I've come into an aid station. I've been like, ooh, pickles. I never had pickles. I never had pickles, in training, but I eat them all the time. Like, how bad could they be? It's like, pickles are a great ultra food. Yes. So, stuff like that. Like, yeah, you know what? Here's some bad advice. Try something new on race day.
Definitely new shoes, new shorts, new everything. Yeah. And so speaking of events, let's get into Rat Race USA. So what?
Yeah.
Tell me all about how this came to be.
Oh man, Rat Race. So I was introduced to Rat Race through my buddy Lee Stewart Evans. And Lee is probably he's one of those guys that you meet him once and you'll never forget him. He is just an absolute he's just a gem of a human. He's a character. He's everything. He's an amazing, one of my best friends now. And so back in was that 2018 or what was that? No, 2019. He's like, hey, some mates of mine are putting this event on up in the Adirondacks, and they're starting at Lake Tier. They're basically climbing Mount Marcy. They're finding Lake Tier of the Clouds as you come down the backside, and that's the source of the Hudson River. And then they're going to follow the Hudson River all the way down to where it empties out at Battery Park in Manhattan, where it empties out into essentially the Atlantic Ocean. I guess that's the bay there, whatever. And it was called Source to City. And he's like, yeah, these guys, I did one of their events years ago called the Mongol 100. And we ran across a frozen lake in Mongolia. And it was a multi-day, like essentially like a stage race. And some people could do it on, bikes, stud wheel bikes. And some people did it on ice skates, but it was just kind of like, it's a frozen lake in Mongolia, frozen solid. And you're going to go across it. And I thought that sounds awesome. He's like, oh yeah. And I've done, these guys do all these amazing events. So our plan was to hike up the other side of Mount Marcy. We started 11 o'clock at night, hiked up with all this gear, and we set up an aid station for them at the top. We made them coffee and bacon sandwiches, and there's all these wild blueberries growing over the top. So I picked like a pint of blueberries for them.
Oh, cool.
They come up the other side from Lake Placid, and we feed them. We introduce, all the introductions are made, snap some pictures, and then we're off. And I took a group down, the faster group. They're like, Jimmy, you take the faster group, and Lee's going to hang back with the slower group. And I think there was 11 of them, and yeah, is that right? Yeah, 11 runners, and we got them down to the support vehicle, and then they hopped on bikes, and then they went off, to do, a 35-mile bike ride to their hotel. And they were all explaining to me what this event was as we were running down, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna do bikes, and we're gonna, sleep tonight, and then tomorrow I believe we're going to do more cycling. Then we're going to hop in, canoes or kayaks on the Hudson River. And then we're going to, do a, 20 something mile, through the Hudson Highlands. And I'm like, whoa, this sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, then it finishes off with like basically a half marathon run, down through Manhattan, and finish right at Battery Park there at the end, at the tip. And I'm like, this is amazing. And, so after our group got down, not too much, behind us was the other group. And that was Jim Me, CEO, and the mastermind behind Rat Race International. We just got to talking, and we hit it off, and he's just amazing guy, and he's got amazing ideas, and he's telling me about all these other ideas they have and all these other events they put on. Namibia and Santorini, Greece, and and I'm just like, wow, like that's awesome. I said, I'm putting on my first big race in about 3 weeks time here, or no, I think it was about maybe a month's time after this. I said, I'm putting on my first big race, 50 miler, half marathon. Let's stay in touch, whatever, I guess. And I guess one thing comes to another. They check in with me last year after I put on another. I was able to put on 3 of my 4 races successfully under COVID.
That's awesome.
Buddy of mine, I got to give props to my buddy Brian Vanderheiden of a Steep Endurance. He basically wrote the trail race mitigation plan, COVID mitigation plan for the state of Connecticut, and he puts on fantastic trail races here too. And he basically wrote, and I did a little bit of alterations to make it fit with the permit and some of the other park supervisors for my 2 other events. And, I was able to get races off, and I was able to, people, nobody, no infections, and did it safely. And it was awesome. And I guess, right after that, Jim and Allie Bailey reached out to me and said, hey, what are you doing right now? I was teaching, I was back teaching special ed. And they said, what are you doing? I said, I'm teaching special ed. They said, you like it? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Does anybody really like teaching? No, I actually love teaching.
I understand that.
And they said, what do you really want to do? And I was like, I want to play outside all day. I wish I could get paid to play outside all day. And they said, well, we're going to, let's keep talking. And lo and behold, they said, we're going big in the States. We're going all in. And we want you to be our guy in the States. I guess they put their feelers out and, to see if, I talked about setting up, my company as an LLC, but they just, they were just like, here's what we want. Can you help us? I said, yeah, let's do it. And they gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. And, we're rolling with it now. And I'm so psyched to put some of these events on, because the ideas and the formats and just, it's mind-boggling how, and these locales are absolutely amazing. So it's kind of like what I'm doing here in Connecticut, but on a macro scale, in amazing wilderness areas and amazing, iconic trails and scenic locations that just blow my mind. I look at the pictures and I look at the maps and I'm like, this is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, they do a fantastic time. So they have like a good variety of events, as you said, and their promos for like each video. It's like, I want to do that. No, I want to do that one. No, I want to do that one. But the biggest one that caught my eye years ago was the Rat Race Dirty Weekend, which is like an obstacle course race. It's like, I think they said it was like a Burning Man meets like obstacle course racing, and it looked amazing. Like
Yeah.
longest monkey bars, this and that.
I believe
Do
they've
you have
tried to
any?
get in the Guinness book, like every year they've done it. They've tried to do something bigger than yeah.
I
And
love that.
they have amazing bands and stuff. Yeah, it looks incredible.
Yeah. So having these events in coming to the States, what direction do you think you guys are going? More of like the adventure race style or some obstacle course racing, a bit of everything?
It's so for as for right now, what we have on the table is yeah, adventure race that are more in the expedition style, where it's more of a it's less what I would call a race. We're more about the, one of the catchphrases we've been bouncing around, and this just struck a chord with me is finish lines, not finish times.
I
Um,
like that.
and yeah, and the idea is that like no man left behind, and that we are, that we'll break into pace groups or whatever kind of thing, but it's something that it's challenging enough where it's going to be hard and it's going to test you, and you're going to push your boundaries. It's going to push back at you. And but it's not undoable, and it's not going to break you in a way that like, like a race like Hard Rock, or a race that has like Western States, has a 30-hour cutoff.
Yeah.
There's essentially like, very generous quote unquote cutoffs. And just one of the races we're developing right now, for the in the Frank Church No Return Wilderness in Idaho. It's essentially 2 days of mountain biking, and then a day of mountain running, and then hop in pack rafts. And there's these amazing class 3 rapids on the Wild Salmon River that we're going to do and we're going to wild camp. So we're going to do a long day in the rafts, and then camp, and then hop back in the rafts, do a little bit more, and then do another day of mountain running. And it's the locale. These are some of the deepest these canyons up in Idaho are deeper than the Grand Canyon.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and just looking at the scenery, it's one of the ones I'm really, really psyched for it. It's just going to be incredible. And it's just the vision and the scope, and it's like nothing I've ever seen, like what these guys want to do. And essentially, these experiences are, how do I say it? They're meant to be life-changing. They're meant to be, it's not about beating people or competition. It's more about like seeing what you're made of, cracking yourself open, and coming out of it a different, maybe better person, sort of thing.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. And I think that a lot of the athletic, we call ourselves like weekend warriors, are really hungry for adventure racing now.
Mm-hmm.
After seeing, I don't know if you watched Eco Challenge that
Okay,
came
yeah.
out. So the second place team was 2 very big obstacle course racers, and it really put that adventure racing on the map for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just super exciting. Like these events are out there, and we're always looking for exactly that. I don't really have a competitive bone in my body, but I
Mm-hmm.
love to push myself and see what I'm capable of. Like
Right.
24-hour obstacle course race. Can I do an ultra marathon? Can I do this? Can I do that? So that sounds something that's really, really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things I discovered about myself last year when, I was supposed to do, so I remember I was, at the beginning of the year last year, I was like, hey man, 2020 is going to be amazing. I got into Boston again. So I qualified for Boston. I ran my marathon PR, at the end of 18. And like, I was like, I'm going to do Boston and Western States the same calendar year. Like, this is so cool. And then COVID comes, and it's like, okay, I remember Boston got canceled, I think March 12th.
Yep. Around that
And,
time.
and then I was like, okay. And then I think 2 weeks later, Western States was called. And I was like, I'm like, I'm gonna have to make my own year pretty much. Like, and I had to postpone all my races because I had a race in March, I had a race in May, I had to push them all to, later September, August, September, October. And I remember being like, and I made this statement to a buddy. I said, this is we're going to find out who the real runners are. We're going to find out who the real outdoor people are this year. And I don't know about you, but man, there were weekends where you couldn't even get a parking spot at the local, the second largest state park is 2 miles from my house. And like, it was just packed. And I'm like, man, people are getting after it. People are out hiking, and, people are just doing the outdoor thing. So, you know, I was like, I'm going to try. I did so much stupid stuff last year that was so fulfilling. Like I was like, I'm going to see how many 100-mile weeks I can do in a row. So I did 300-mile weeks in a row. Then I
Wow.
did, then I did the fourth week. I did 30,000. I went into Everest in a week. So I did 30,000 feet of vertical in a week. And then a couple weeks later, I think 2 weeks after that, I did I did a 100-miler, self-supported 100-miler. Well, I guess it was supported. I had friends come and pace and stuff like that. And, but you know, I was out 26 hours, almost 27 hours was out. And I started at Friday night at 8 o'clock too. So I started out already tired.
Yeah.
And that was an awesome experience, you know. And then I did another 100-miler with friends. You know, just we threw it together, and we did, it was a 2.6 mile trail that we did 20 times. So it was 104 miles. And we did that on the first super hot day in mid-July. So it was
Of
like
course.
98 degrees. It was awful. And it was like, I had the best time. And it was like, you know, and a few people I'd never met before that now I consider good friends. You know, so a lot of us made our own adventures, you know,
Yeah.
and that was the thing that I realized. I said, you could, you know, just think it up. And if nobody's into it, do it by yourself, you know.
Yeah.
And I realized last year how much I love endurance sports. And you know, it's you know, and then not only that, but taking my kid, you know, my kid just turned 5. So my kid was 4, you know, 4.5 years old, and his, you know, preschool shut. And so I was kind of like, you know, I was teacher, dad, teacher, like, you know, I had my own kids, you know, that I was trying to teach remotely. And, but like, there was huge chunks of the day where me and him would just go out hiking, and,
Yeah.
you know, taking him to a waterfall and seeing the wonder in him, and, you know, going finding caves, and just, you know, and so I think the outdoor industry right now is in an awesome position. And people, you know, this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be
Yeah.
out connecting with nature. And you know, I mean, the suffering out, going out and suffering in it is optional, but you know, that's also kind of fun too.
Yeah. There's a couple things you said there that I definitely want to point out. The whole state parks being filled up. I remember I'm about 5 miles from Massasoit State Park. It's a pretty big one here in Taunton, and it was just packed with cars every single time. And initially, I was super grouchy. I'm like, what are all these people doing here? They're never here. And then I'm like, wait, this is good. Like, what the hell am I
Yeah.
talking about? Like, this is good. People are out there. They need to experience things. And the second part is like the childlike wonder. Like you said, your son seeing like a waterfall and this and that. Over time, we start to lose that, right? And
Right.
people start to settle with like, I'm just going to live my life in a cubicle working. I mean, no hate to people that work in office jobs, but it sucks. You got to have some sort of adventure too. And it's
Yeah.
just, you lose that over time. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to claw my way to get back to that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember. Yeah, I remember being kind of upset, like thinking, like, oh man, there's so many people out on the trails. Like, a lot of them don't know the etiquette, but it's like, you know, it's kind of like our job to sort of gently teach them, you know.
Yeah.
And but also, this is a good thing. Like you were saying, this is good because more allies for the outdoors means we're going to have more access, and we're going to have more, you know, hopefully legislation continues to get passed that protects this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And if we have more advocates and more allies, that it's like, oh, you know, from the pandemic, I went to REI and I bought hiking boots, and I, you know, became a hiker, and then I got trekking poles, and then you know, now they're planning, you know, Appalachian Trail trips, and it's like, yes, this is good. This is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that early on in the pandemic, I was fun employed where usually I'm like in-home services. So like, no matter what, like you still have to work. And then eventually like, okay, we're going to pull you guys too. And so there was like 3 months, 3 or so months where I couldn't work at all. So I had to do like telehealth stuff an hour here and there, but I got to like do training 2-a-days, and I got to eat healthier. And I was in like the best shape of my life, which was really great. I got to really have full control. And then going back to work, I started to lose all that stuff. But like, just the importance of like putting stuff on the calendar and like pointing to this to be like, I need to be ready for this. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited for events to start coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's yeah, that's the thing. I just miss the camaraderie, man. I miss the community. Yeah, I miss hugs too. I'm a
yeah,
hugger. I know a lot of people are like, I'm glad there's no more hugs. I'm like, I miss that. I need that. Like,
I'm pretty introverted, but even I'm like, I miss my people. I miss my fellow crazies that like
Yeah.
do this kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so the pandemic, how is that like affecting? I mean, naturally we're sort of moving to the vaccination point where a lot of people are starting to get more
Mm.
vaccinated. But where is like the pandemic in the whole rat race scenario?
Yeah, that's a great question because so something that Jim did, they were able to pivot real quickly and essentially start sort of like offering vouchers and
Yes, I
rollovers.
saw.
So like yeah, so like everything was protected where with their international stuff. So where it was like what was the one the John O was it John O'Groats to Land's End, which is essentially the entire top of Scotland to the bottom of England. Event I guess when they put it on sale, I believe they sold it out in 6 minutes.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I believe it's like 35 days. I'm going to have some of it wrong. It's like 35 days where they're doing like 30 miles a day because it's almost 1,000 miles or whatever it is, and uh, yeah, like that's the thing is that they were essentially offering vouchers where they're like, I believe they sold for this, and I'm probably going to have a lot of stuff wrong here because I just know the North American end of
Yeah,
it.
no, that's
Um,
fair.
yeah, yeah. But they basically were like, it's gonna, it's definitely happening. We're selling tickets for 2023 essentially, where they are, basically sold out an event 2 years down the line. And then they were selling, basically offering vouchers or offering rollovers for everything. So everything was protected. I think that's what we're gonna do here, where if
Smart.
certain things, I guess they still haven't opened the border to Canada, and that could have possibly affect our Alaska Gold Rush event that we're looking at in August. So we have a plan to pivot real quick, and possibly another event we're going to put on possibly next year might pivot and do that in August. So they have a very fluid and very sophisticated mitigation plan essentially for if not if no A then B, and if
Yeah.
no B then C D E, so
And that's the ultra
they're
mindset too, right?
yeah,
Like you have to
exactly.
pivot, or else like if you
Mhm.
hit a wall and you just give up, like you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, and that was a thing a lot of people did last year, where the big one of the big 50Ks in the state that a lot of people's first 50K here in Connecticut is Bimbler's Bluff 50K, and there was a bunch of guys that were going to do it, and it got canceled, and they still went and they did the course that day, and they gave themselves water drops and gave themselves self support, and they still went and did it, and it's like a lot of people were doing stuff like that last year where
Yeah.
this race got canceled and people still went and, quote unquote, did it, self-supported. And that to me that's the spirit of this sport,
Yeah.
that, that's just, that's the, and that's the spirit of the people. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I know that the website's still being built and everything, but what are some other? I don't want you to speak anything too soon, but like, what are some other
Yeah. Yeah.
areas that you guys are looking at in addition to like Ohio, Idaho?
I know. We're looking at so we're looking at Alaska. The essentially it's the starting in Skagway, or I'm sorry, starting in Dyea, the town of Dyea. There's the Chilkoot Trail, which crosses into Canada, and essentially it's the old gold rush, the Klondike Gold Rush from 1897, where these guys, these stampeders, essentially went up there and they built this trail into the Klondike, and it's essentially 33 miles, starting in Alaska, crossing into British Columbia, then Yukon, ending at the ghost town of Bennett, and then which is Lake Bennett, which I believe is fed by a glacier, which is the source of the Yukon River, and the Yukon,
Oh,
I
that's
believe,
cool.
is the third longest river in North America. And so we'll we'll do a couple days on foot with some wild camping, and then hop in canoes and do the entirety of Lake Bennett, and then end in the town of Carcross, hop on bikes for a couple of days with some camping and hotels, and then end up down in the town of, see if I remember it. It's on the Carmax, past
Okay.
Whitehorse. So we'll go past Whitehorse, Yukon, and along the Alaska Highway, and then hop back on the Yukon River for 4 days, floating all the way down to Dawson City. And these are all, you know, these old mining towns that, you know, essentially started as camps with, you know, brothels and gunfights and, you know, sacks of gold and that are, you know, now these amazing towns up in beautiful wilderness areas with, you know, tons of grizzly bears and but that's that. I'm so excited for that. I was joking with a friend the other day. I was like, I'm actually more excited to do that this year than Western States. He's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hate to say that. I'm like, man, you know, I was like, I feel like I'm 3 or 4 years past the excitement level of Western States, but it's like, you know, I still want to do it. And I'm still really psyched for it. And, you know, I'm training hard for it, but I'm really, really psyched to do this Alaska Yukon thing.
Yeah.
And like we said, if, you know, if that doesn't happen, then we will do a 9-day trekking, cycling again trip through California, starting at the Golden Gate Bridge. It's called, we're going to call this Golden Gate to Golden Nugget. Essentially
Cool.
starting in, you know, the north side of in Marin County, north side of the Golden Gate Bridge, crossing the Golden Gate Bridge on bikes, essentially doing 3 days of cycling down through the Central Valley and ending the bike portion at the foothills of the Sierra, and then leaving the bikes with a support van and trekking up up to the John Muir Trail, and then summiting Mount Whitney from the north, and then coming back down through Whitney. So we'd spend 3 days trekking some of the Muir Trail, and then coming back down through Whitney Portal, hopping back on bikes, and then we'd ride down to Badwater and be a couple of days riding Stovepipe Wells and Death Valley Junction. So we'd hit the highest and lowest points in the continental U.S. in one trip, and end at the Golden Nugget for tuxedos and betting on black. And these are the, you know, Jim has these amazing ideas that, you know, and he
Yeah.
said, here, throw a course together, you know, tell me where we should stay, which, you know, and so that's, you know, just me sitting there with a map and, you know, colored pencils and you know, figuring out the best route, best places to sleep, and you know, and just the ideas that they have are just unbelievable and so awesome. And I believe our website's going live end of next week.
Okay.
So the what's this week? The week of the 8th. So the week of the
Yes.
15th. Yeah. So I believe the website will be live by the end of next week. And what's the other events that we're looking at? The crater to canyon, which starts at the meteor crater in Winslow, Arizona, and
Okay.
be about a 20-mile run through Canyon Diablo to an old ghost town. And then we hop on bikes, ride into Flagstaff, spend the night in Flagstaff, and then we do about a 30-mile day, leaving Flagstaff, run on foot. That day would all be on foot, and we would go summit Humphreys Peak, and then we'd camp on the east side of the mountain, and then we'd hop on mountain bikes and do 74 miles on the Arizona Trail all the way to the south rim of the Grand Canyon on the third day. So yeah, Crater to Canyon, that's going to be awesome. I'm really psyched for that.
Yeah.
And oh man, and then of course the two established races they have are the Source to City up in Adirondacks to New York City, and the City to Sea, which is Miami to Key West.
Oh,
And
cool.
that's 2 days. Yeah, that's the first day is kayaking from Biscayne Bay, from basically South Miami down through the intercoastal waterways, I believe, to Isla Morada, and then we spend the night in Isla Morada, and the next day is about 100, almost 100 miles on bikes, and it finishes with about a 12, 13-mile run, essentially a half marathon into Key West. And I'm really psyched for that one because that's in December, and you know, being in Florida in December is awesome. Just because when it starts getting cold up here and miserable, you know, I'll go down there and, you know,
Nice little
70.
escape.
Yeah, it's like 78 and sunny, and like, you know, but yeah, I mean, their ideas, the multi-sport, you know, multi-discipline, multi-day thing is so appealing to me. You know, once I did my first 100 miler and was out there for 25 hours, and then, you know, my next one, I think I was out there 32 hours. Like, it's the mental challenge of doing this stuff is the thing that once you get done and you look back, maybe a couple days, couple weeks, whatever goes by, and you're like, man, I did that thing and then you think about your life and the obstacles in your life,
Yeah.
you're like, I could do anything, like, and it's pretty awesome. I think it's one of those things it's given me more confidence than I ever thought I'd have,
Yeah.
to go at life head on,
The founder of Spartan Race, Joe DeSena, is very big into that. He calls it obstacle immunity. And he says,
Yeah,
like, you go out there, you crawl into barbed wire, you jump over fire, you do this and that. You go to work and your stapler doesn't work. So fucking what? Like, like, who cares? It's
exactly.
fine.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a great way to look at life. Cause it's like, these things that, years, I was a 200-pound pack a day smoker, drunk all through my 20s. Life was just passing me by. I was always, sitting on a bar stool talking about all the amazing stuff I was going to do, and I never did anything. And then I don't know what changed. I just got sick of being that guy, and now I'm this different guy that does these things, and I look at other things in my life, and I'm like, this is not going to be that bad, because that time at Eastern State's 100 miler, when my freaking butthole fell apart because I couldn't stop shitting because I don't know what I ate. And I still, I had some guy help put my butthole back together, and I tell people this story. I tell normal people this story and they look at me like, you're insane. I tell runners and ultra runners, and endurance athletes this, and they're like, oh yeah. Yeah. You get some Desitin, in there, and I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, it fixes you right up like a baby's butt. And I'm like, yeah, who knew? Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I did that, and it's like other things don't seem that bad. Like, oh, you got to fix a flat in the rain. Yeah, that sucks. Just do it. Like,
Yeah. 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 It's amazing, like, lessons that you learn from this sport that some people just never seem to learn, and just, I don't know. It makes life that much more interesting. So I think, like, on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking about all these vanilla things. You're going to be thinking about the times you did epic shit like this.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah. So again, the website's still being built. If this goes up before the website's done, where can people follow more of news from you guys?
That's an awesome question. We have a let me look it up right here, because I think I don't want to give people the website. So it's let me spell it right here. I want to say it's Rat Race. I'm going to probably get this wrong here. So I would tell people to hit our Facebook, Rat Race USA. And that's where we're posting a lot of stuff. Essentially, like, hey, trying to get people psyched about, one of the things I've been telling people to do is contact me at jimmy.mccaffrey@ratrace.com. And I can send you out what we call a test pilot catalog. And that's essentially all these test pilots that I'm talking about. Because we're going to go do these as test pilots to see if they work first. That's the cool thing.
Yeah.
Before we put them on sale, we're going to go work out. It's going to be warts and all, work out the kinks. Still going to have an amazing experience, and you're still going to go do the event. You're just going to do it, kind of with us as testers. And so that's the thing I'm telling people right now. If you want to get involved, with us and come be a test pilot, that's the best way to kind of get a sneak peek at this before, it becomes an actual event and goes on sale to the public. So yeah, hit us up at Rat Race USA on Facebook. And then, we'll have links to the landing page there. Hit me up, slide up into my DMs, and I'll hit you with a test pilot catalog. And yeah, essentially just, and that's the other thing too, is I love connecting with people. So, hit me up and be like, hey, I'm a triathlete. I hate running. It's like the one thing, and I'm like, yeah, man, I hate cycling, dude. But like, I used to love it. What happened? Like, so because I want people to change my mind,
Yeah.
I want to hear your guys' stories. I want to hear what you guys love. So yeah, just connect with me on Facebook or Instagram. And yeah, let's start rapping about it.
Perfect. I'll link to all those below. Thank you so much.
Yeah, right on. Thank you, Michael.